Hi, so we continue from how we left off. We're introduced to a new character. His name is Ekweme. Ekweme is a hunter by profession, and he's a single man. He's a single man who's had a crush on Ihoma also. So after Eminike's death, it was an opportunity for him to make his intentions known. Ekweme is the first son, or is the first child of Adaku and Wigwe. And these two, Adaku and Wigwe, recently had a baby, and they had this baby in their old age. So their child was a village blessing. Everyone went to visit the baby. You know how we celebrate new kids in Africa? We all go, we take presents, we chat a little with the new parents, and that was what was happening. So Ekweme and Ihoma had a mutual friend. Her name was Neda. So Neda had taken so long to go and visit Adaku and Wigwe and their new baby. So she finally went there. While she was there, they talked here and there, and her reason for not having gone to visit early was because her husband had a boil. And you know how embarrassing boils are. So yeah, so anyway, they talked a little. On her way out, she met Ekweme. Ekweme then told her his intentions about Ihoma. Just a backtrack. Ihoma was still staying in her husband's compound, Eminike's compound. And Eminike had a brother, Nandi. So Nandi was the one who was caring for Ihoma's needs. He was the one who was thatching her hut whenever it broke. He was the one who helped her tie her yams for Ike market day and all those things. So Nandi and Ekweme were friends. So Nandi, Ekweme, and Wodu were friends, and each time there was an errand that Ihoma needed, Nandi would always get Ekweme, or Ekweme would volunteer to help Nandi with his errand. Anything concerning Ihoma, he was always handy with her, with the friend anyway. So Ekweme talks to Neda, and he told her he liked her friend, and he was hoping that Neda would, relay his message and tell Ihoma how he felt about her. So Neda finally, as they were having that discussion, they discussed that Neda was supposed to give Ekweme an answer 2 days after that conversation. So immediately Neda went to her place. So she used to stay close to Ihoma's place. They were practically neighbors. When Neda went back to her place, she went and approached Ihoma, and she told her about Ekweme's intentions. And Ihoma didn't say anything. So the day that Neda was supposed to relay the message, Ekweme woke up very, very anxious. You know how it is, He woke up very anxious, and he missed her as she was going to the stream, but he met her on her way back. So Neda told Ekweme, saying, no, you know what, this girl has not said anything. She's not said anything. And Ihoma's silence perplexed Ekweme, because to him, he definitely knew that there was something there. Even though their friendship was platonic, I'm sure to some degree she knew that he had feelings for her, and she too showed some sort of interest in her. It was not very loud on her end, but it was so obvious that Ekweme liked her like that. So anyway, we are then taken to Madumi. You remember Madumi, the man that was somehow responsible in Eminike's death. He was responsible, but he was oblivious to the fact that he was responsible to Eminike's death. So anyway, Madumi was very clear that he liked Ihoma. In fact, there's been a time he told his wife Wolu that he wanted Ihoma to be her second wife, and Wolu didn't want this. She actually told him, saying, it's better if I was the second wife and Ihoma was the first wife. I can't have Ihoma as my junior in this marriage. But then Madumi was hell-bent on marrying Ihoma, and he decided, since Wolu could not deliver the message the way he wanted it delivered, he decided he was going to do it on his own. So anyway, he knew Ihoma's schedule, so he knew what time she would go to the stream, and he decided to follow her there. When he was almost at the stream, he found her already on her way back. So he pretended to want to help her carry her calabash. You know that thing where people ask, not actually with the intention of wanting to help, but just out of courtesy. So he asked and she denied, obviously, because she didn't like Madumi. So he followed her back to her house while she had her calabash on the head. He followed her back. When they reached her compound, he pretended to want to help, like put the calabash down, but she still didn't mind him. She didn't pay attention to him. So as that was happening, he unfortunately hit his leg on a hole. So he hurt his leg. And Ihoma left Madumi in the reception hall, and she went about her business. Even as he hurt himself, she didn't say anything. She was just quiet, and she didn't pay attention to him. He screamed, she didn't pay attention to him at all. So he got the message and he decided to leave. While he was still, before he left, his wife passed and he saw her, and she saw him in Ihoma's compound, and that irritated her. So the time that Madumi went home, he hurt himself really badly. So they argued here and there about why he was in Ihoma's compound, but Wolu decided to go and call Anyika, who was the village dibia, the village witch doctor. When Anyika came, the first thing he said was, "You're lucky that you've not died. You're lucky that you've not died because the spirits are after you. Eminike, Ihoma's late husband, doesn't want you near his wife. There's so many spirits in that yard that don't want you there. So their aim was to kill you. You are lucky that you are alive. You're lucky that you're alive." So Anyika told Madumi, you need to perform, so you need to appease the gods, we need to perform a certain sacrifice and make a protective charm for you. In fact, after Eminike's death, Madumi was given some charms to protect him from Eminike's ghost. So Anyika told him, the reason that you're still alive is because of that charm that I gave you. So now we need to appease the gods, we need to do this sacrifice so that they can protect you further. So it was a list. Anyika gave Madumi a list of the things that were needed for that sacrifice and that ritual, and these things were not cheap. So anyway, finally Madumi managed to gather all of these things. So anyway, they managed to perform this ritual. I'm going to insert the things that Madumi had to recite. So they went to a crossroads and they did that ritual there. The rule was he was not supposed to look back, and that's exactly what he did. He was not supposed to look back, and that ritual was performed. So Anyika assured Madumi that now that that ritual has been performed, he was safe, he was going to be protected. So at this point Madumi realized that definitely there is no relationship possible between him and Ihoma. What was his next move? He wanted to go and fight her over that land dispute that he had with Eminike, when the village elders and all the villagers knew that that land was given to Ihoma after Eminike's death. So that was his next move. He wanted to go and start farming from that land. Remember what we said in part 1? Madumi was not a good farmer. The only thing he was really good at was wrestling. So because he was not a good farmer, he knew that that land where Ihoma's land, it was very fertile and she had big plantains. So he had his eye on this bunch of plantains that were almost ripe. So that his plan that day was to go and harvest these plantains. And unfortunately, when he went, he found Ihoma had just harvested. She was in the farm. So he found Ihoma had just harvested, and he started a confrontation with her. No, these are my plantains and whatever. So Ihoma knew definitely that Madumi is not a man to fight with, and she was just a woman. She didn't have the strength to fight a man over plantains. So she just left the plantain for him and left. She left crying rather. So when she reached home, her brother-in-law heard her cry. When he inquired what the issue was, she told him no, Madumi is trying to farm in my land and he's gotten my plantains. So then this irritated and upset Nandi. So Nandi went together with other villagers. They went to try and understand what was going on. So because Nandi was upset, he held Madumi. He was almost going to fight him, but the villagers pulled him away, and they just decided, okay, no, let's just walk away. So as they were walking away, Madumi wanted to pluck another bunch of plantains, and unfortunately a cobra spit in his eyes. So he screamed and all the villagers came back. They just saw the tail of the cobra slither away. So anyway, so from that incident, Madumi got blind. After he got blind, his wife quickly rushed to go and call Anyika, the village dibia. And Anyika there and then knew that this was an act of the gods. So he told Wolu, saying, I cannot try to heal your husband without performing certain rituals, because obviously this is a sign from the gods and this is punishment from the gods. So there's nothing I can do now, but I'm going to give you a list of the things that are needed to perform a ritual so that we can make the medicine for Madumi. So Madumi tried different ointments, nothing was working. Wolu was the responsibility of taking care of the family was left in Wolu's hands. So she was given the list of the things that were needed for the sacrifice and the ritual. Bit by bit, she managed to come up with a list. She managed to, like each time she'd find money, she would like buy one thing on the list that was needed and she would take to Anyika. So finally, she was done buying everything for the list. Anyika managed to make the eye ointment, but it was too late. Madumi was completely blind at this point. And because he was completely blind and Madumi being Madumi, he became extra difficult. And he could not do anything on his own. He depended on his wife and his daughters to help him around the house, to help feed him, to bring food to him, to bring water and all that. And still, even in that state, he was not a good man. And Wolu could not handle it anymore. So she told her oldest daughter to pack a few things, and that's how they left. After they left, Madumi decided to end his life, and because he committed suicide, he hanged himself in the house. Because he committed suicide, he could not be buried properly. He was sent to the evil forest. His body was just carried by Anyika. Anyika organized some men. Then his body was carried and dumped in the evil forest, and that was the end of Madumi. That's how Madumi died. So back to Ekweme and Ihoma. At this point, Ekweme is in love with Ihoma. He is on her back and core. He does every small thing to make her happy. He helps thatch her house. He helps carry yams and do all those romantic village things. So he finally gathered the courage to let his intentions known to her. So he told her, like verbally, like, you know what, I like you and I would like us to be more than friends. But Ihoma didn't want to leave her husband's compound. Her getting married to Ekweme meant that she had to leave her husband's compound, but then who would take care of her kids? Because it means she can't farm in her husband's land. She's now another she's now another man's wife. So she didn't want to do that for the sake of her kids. And also Ekweme hadn't married anyone yet, and you know, it was Omokachi's tradition. Like the men in Omokachi, it was a tradition that you had to marry a virgin or a woman who doesn't have any kids. And Ihoma had 3 kids already. So when Ekweme told her that he loved her and he wanted to marry her, she told him, no, I cannot marry you. I have 3 kids already and I also want to get married yet. I want to raise my kids in their father's compound. So as all this was happening, Ekweme's mother, Aduka, knew that there was something off about Ekweme. That day when he went back home, he was very moody, and she knew that he had gone to Ihoma's compound. So some instincts in her told her that he liked Ihoma, and that would put a lot of things out of balance. So it's at this point we're told Ekweme was betrothed to Ahurole, who was from Omigwe's village. Omigwe is where Ihoma was from. So it was tradition back then where 2 kids can be engaged at a young age and they'll get married when they're older. So Ekweme's parents already paid part of the bride price to Ahurole's parents. So Ahulore's father was Wagbana. Please don't mind my pronunciations. As I said earlier, I'm still going to insert them, just so you get the names right. So Ahurole was betrothed to be Eminike's wife. They were engaged when Eminike was 5 years old and Ahurole was just a baby. So it was well known that he needed to marry her from the very beginning. And because that was the case, there was no way Ekweme would marry Ihoma as his first wife, and yet Ahurole was a maiden and she had been kept safe. She had been kept a virgin. She had been raised to be his wife. So when Adako saw that Ekweme was developing interest in Ihoma, she quickly spoke to the husband and told him that we need to start the marriage process for Ekweme and Ahurole. And then the father didn't get it at first. He asked her like, what's the rush? So she goes like, no, we need to marry them off because I feel like Ekweme is falling in love with Ihoma. So that day passed. The following day, like a few days later, Ekweme's father decided to sit down with Ekweme and tell him that no, we have to start the engagement process. We have to finish paying the bride price and just make your intentions known. So then Ekweme told him like, no, I'm not ready for this. Meanwhile, when this conversation was happening, the father had already sent word to Ahurole's parents that the engagement process was about to start. So Wigwe, who is Eminike's dad, sat Ekweme's dad sat Ekweme down and talked to him about the marriage thing. So Ekweme said, I don't want to marry Ahurole. Then the father was like, what's the issue? So Ekweme told his dad that the reason he didn't want to marry was because he wanted to marry Ihoma, and he lied saying Ihoma had already agreed to marry him. And Wigwe knew at the back of his mind that Ihoma being Ihoma, there was no way she could accept to marry Ekweme. So he told his son, okay, fine, since you said she has agreed, we're going to go to her house tomorrow and find out. I want her to tell me on her own that she has agreed to get married to you. So that day, Ekweme didn't sleep. He failed to sleep in peace. He was very uneasy. So early in the morning, he went to Ihoma's compound so that he can give her a heads up on what was going to happen. When he arrived, he didn't find her home. So he later met Nenda, who was Ihoma's best friend, and he asked her like, where is your friend? So Nenda said, no, Ihoma has actually gone to Ominigwe, to her parents' place. So he quickly rushed to Ominigwe. When he went there, he found Ihoma's son playing with his friends, and he asked Ihoma's son like, where is your mother? So Ihoma's son was like, no, she's gone to the farm. And then the farm was far, so he could not go to the farm. Obviously he could not go. Imagine if he had gone and he met Ihoma's parents, because she had gone with her parents to the farm. It would have been so awkward. So he decided to go back home, and this was already like in the evening. So he went back home. Then his father and him met, and they decided to head to Ihoma's house. So luckily, the time they were arriving, Ihoma had just arrived also. That's how his father talks to Ihoma. But then it was awkward. First of all, it was an awkward conversation, because Wigwe definitely knew at the back of his mind that he was not supposed to have this conversation. He was not supposed to ask about Ihoma's love affairs without her people there. He was not supposed to ask about their relationship, like Ihoma and Ekweme's relationship, without having any of her relatives there. So when they sat down, Nandi came. This is Ihoma's brother-in-law. He came, and it was awkward. I mean, it was in the evening. So what were two men doing in his sister-in-law's house? Anyway, that's besides the point. So they managed to get rid of Nandi, and Wigwe started the conversation. He actually asked her if he said he asked her if they could bring the bride price, because Ekweme had said they were in a relationship and she had agreed. So he made it look like he was asking for her hand in marriage, when in the actual sense he was trying to ask what relationship was there between her and his son. But then Ihoma was very mature, so she knew what to answer. So she told him, no, I cannot get married to your son. I'm very grateful that you have asked for my hand, but I cannot get married to your son because I stay in my husband's house and I don't want to leave my husband's house. So that was the second time she was rejecting Ekweme, and she rejected him in the presence of his father, and this solidified her decision in not wanting to marry him. So he definitely knew, Ekweme definitely knew that there was no going back now. He had no choice but to get married to Ahurole, because Ihoma had publicly denied his proposal twice. So anyway, we are now told a little bit of who Ahurole is. So Ahurole is a young maiden. She's very slender, she's slim, and she wears so many beads around her waist and around her ankles also. She's dark in complexion and she has no gap tooth. Remember, Ihoma has a gap tooth, and people in Omokachi and Omigwe loved gap teeth. So because they loved gap teeth so much, they even went to teeth cavers to go and like have their teeth caved so they can have a gap teeth. So Ahurole didn't have a gap teeth, but she was very beautiful. She was a virgin and all that. But she had one problem. She had the spirit of Agu. I'm going to insert the name there. Everyone was considered to have a spirit of Agu, but then hers was so strong. She would suddenly cry, should have sudden bursts of anger. She was difficult to understand here and there, and her family knew that this was an issue, but they kept it at bay. So because of her spirit of Agu, her younger sibling always like teased her here and there, but it was not so bad. In fact, one incident we're told is when she's told that her husband to be is coming to start the rites of marriage, like they're coming to complete the rites of marriage, she suddenly started crying, and her mother didn't understand why she was crying. So her brother teased her and she cried even more. Yeah. So Ahurole had a best friend called Titi. I'm going to insert her full name in there. So her best friend knew what kind of person Ahurole was. So anyway, that's Ahurole. They started the marriage processes. According to Omokachi's tradition, these marriage processes would take up to a year. Like it would be a whole year of preparations, taking palm wine and eating and having a feast. It would take a whole year of celebrations and then get married at the end of the year. So the first time they went to Omigwe, Wigwe, Ekweme's father, went with Wodu and Nam. Yeah, so Nam was the one that carried the palm wine calabash, and the other two gentlemen were just working. The other three were just working. So anyway, they arrived and they started eating. They started eating, but then before they started eating, Ahurole's father, Wagbana, didn't like Wakiri. This is Wodu, because remember, Wakiri was the village clown, so he didn't like him. And immediately they arrived, Wagbana called Wigwe on the side and asked him, like, why have you carried this clown? Then Wigwe told Agbana, no, he's not a clown, he's very serious when it comes to serious situations, and he's Ekweme's friend, so there's really nothing I can do. But since you don't like him, I'm not going to bring him along. So during that meeting, Wakiri had, said a few jokes here and there, but he knew the seriousness of the matter, so he behaved himself, so to say. So anyway, that first meeting went on well. Ahurole was in hiding the whole time. They barely saw her. They only saw her once when she brought a calabash, or with the calabash of palm wine. So that whole process, like the marriage process, the buying of wine, the meeting the bride's family, was very expensive, and this opened Ekweme's mind to different possibilities. He then knew that marrying is actually very expensive. He had a newfound respect for married men because he saw how expensive and how involving the whole process was. It was very lengthy and very expensive. It's like each meeting they went to, they needed to take money. They needed to spend so much money on the wine and the food and all that. So yeah, that's what happened. See you in the next one. Subscribe, like, share, and comment. Bye.